After many years, we finally got a new Mafia story. The very first game originally released in 2002 and featured a gritty mob story with crime and betrayal, focusing on a mob war between two families, and a character that rises through the ranks of one of these families during the era of the Prohibition in 1930s America. The series then spent a bit of time in the wilderness until Mafia 2 released in 2010. This one followed Vito Scaletta and once again followed one man's rise and fall, being involved with the mob in post-World War II America. Many consider Mafia 2 to be the diamond of the series. Then in 2016, Mafia 3 released. This one was a strange one. Although it had a Mafia element to it, it at times did not feel like a Mafia game. The story, in my opinion, was actually not that bad, but it followed a repetitive mission structure. There was then a remake of the first Mafia game, the Definitive Edition, which brought Lost Heaven to life with modern graphics and certain tweaks to the story. After the flop that was Mafia 3, Mafia fans were hopeful that because of this remake, Hangar 13 were taking the series in the right direction, and that feeling was only strengthened with the announcement of a prequel to the entire series, which was set in Sicily and focused on the origins of the Sicilian Mafia. In this video, we'll be looking at the story of Mafia, the old country, and also taking a quick look at what was going on in Sicily prior to the game taking place. Please be aware that this game has just released, so there will be spoilers. There will also be spoilers for the rest of the Mafia series, but only in the final chapter of this video, so you can turn the video off then if you don't want to have the rest of the franchise spoiled. Let's begin. Right, first we need to talk about something called the Expedition of the Thousand. Led by Giuseppe Garibaldi in 1860, he captured Sicily as part of the Risorgimento. This is essentially the unification of Italy. After, the Kingdom of Italy was created and Rome became its capital. After the unification, the first of two major diasporas, or emigrations, took place, with lots of people ending up on the island of Sicilia. Sicily would itself remain a self-governed island though, and its capital was Palermo. Many residents on the island, workers and peasants, became unhappy at the decline of the social and economic conditions. But this group, who called themselves the Fasci Siciliani, the Sicilian Workers' Leagues, and their protests, were quickly squashed in 1894. But let's lead this on to the Sicilian Mafia. Their birth actually came about, in Italy at least, as early as the 19th century, around 1812. As well as the unification of Italy in 1860, one other thing that helped this crime syndicate was Sicily's transition from feudalism to capitalism. Large amounts of land on the island were taken away from the nobility and were handed over to private citizens. The amount of landowners in Sicily went from just 2,000 owners to 20,000 over the course of just under 5 decades. More landowners resulted in more disputes, and the barons would send out their own private armies, but they couldn't really hack it. Some towns on the island didn't even have a police force, so some landowners turned to protectors not regulated by the law of the land. These groups who offered their services became the first mafia clans, and they saw very good results due to their rate of success being much higher than that of the actual police. These clans would all live by a code of silence called omerta, which also resulted in non-interaction with the police or authorities. It wasn't until 1865 that the term mafia came to be termed. The mafia would meddle in politics and also make friends in high places, but this was mostly through bribes and extortion. This way they would get the local authorities allied with them, in a sense, and this would help their members avoid action or prosecution for their crimes. It's considered that around 1900, around 670 mafiosi were thought to be operating, and they belonged to 8 mafia clans. The emergence of the Sicilian Mafia is also linked to the abundant sulfur resources, which was Sicily's most valuable export, and the Mafia would therefore capitalise on areas with weak law enforcement and the need for protection. But let's now fast forward to 1904. In rural Sicily, slaves are being forced to work in the sulfur mines. 2 workers are secretly looking for a bunch of cash that they'd both saved. A series of cave-ins has put that hidden cash at risk, so they need it, and the tunnel has been recently decommissioned and is being prepped for full closure by blowing it up. The 2, named Enzo and Gaetano, find it and make their way back to the other workers. When Enzo was 5 years old, he was sold to the mine by his father so he could pay off his gambling debts. Enzo is what's called a caruso, which means boy, a derogatory word for a miner in Sicily. Now 17, Enzo and Gaetano nearly have enough money saved up in order to pay for their freedom. So this mine is protected by the Spadaro crime family, one of those mafia families in Sicily. The man in charge of making sure this operation runs smoothly and who makes sure the workers aren't slacking off is known as Il Merlo, Sicilian for the Blackbird. The owners of the mine are Baron Raphael Fontanella and Girolamo Ludovici, who are the primary shareholders. There have been some tensions between the two, as Fontanella, whose family has owned the mine for a long time, is pushing back on Ludovici wanting to modernise and his desires to push for the company to prioritise on their reaction to the dwindling demand for Sicilian sulphur. Fontanella thinks modernising will come with labour concerns and effects on the landscape, and whilst both have valid points, their feud is destabilising the company. The company itself is in quite bad financial shape, as requests for tools to increase productivity are being denied, but food deliveries for the workers to eat are also being scaled back. But back to the present. Enzo sees Il Merlo ordering a worker to carry some sulphur, but the man says his ankle is hurting, so Enzo steps in and offers to carry it outside. Stepping out into the blistering heat, they put down the sulphur and the workers are looking at the volcano in the distance. They are all talking about tremors, and those are the reason for the many cave-ins recently. Workers are also being forced to do extra shifts in order to compensate for the lost time thanks to the tremors. Enzo and Gaetano go to get some food, but they discover they're too late as the food is done with, and they will now have to wait until tomorrow. Not satisfied and hungry after a long day's work, Enzo sneaks into the storehouse there and steals a loaf of bread for him and Gaetano to eat. Back in the bunkhouse, Gaetano pulls out a postcard he'd received from his uncle, who lives in Empire Bay in America, and he has plans to go there for a better life once they're free. Despite their shift being finished, they're called back in to complete a double shift. Outside, they find one of the workers arguing with Il Merlo, whose real name is Damiano, and his brother Corrado. The boss, Don Ruggiero Spadaro, shows up and wants to know what's going on. The worker explains that one of the crew has not returned from a new deposit they'd found, and that something is not right. Naturally, Spadaro doesn't really care, as he just wants them to get back to work. Remember, his family has been put in place to ensure that the mine runs efficiently, and that no union action or refusal to work takes place. He says to send someone down there, so naturally, after their little confrontation earlier where Enzo made Il Merlo look like a fool, he sends Enzo and Gaetano down there. It's not long until they discover why the crew didn't return, and that's because they're dead. Lots of gas down here. They see the lantern flaring, which of course means gas. Tremors hit and the deep mine starts to cave in. Enzo and Gaetano run, but in doing so, Gaetano drops the money they'd taken 12 years to save. It's within reaching distance, so he goes to grab it, but gets crushed under the rubble. Enzo then makes his way out of the mine. Seeing Il Merlo there, still ordering the workers to carry on working despite the cave-in, Enzo is filled with rage and insults Il Merlo, with him hitting Enzo, so Enzo pulls an old rusty knife that he'd taken from the storehouse. Enzo and Il Merlo then have a knife fight, which culminates in Enzo slashing Il Merlo's face. With more tremors occurring, Enzo decides now is a good time to run away, so he slides down a bank and whilst being shot at by Spadaro's thugs, he jumps onto a horse and escapes the mine. Taking refuge in some old outbuildings on a vineyard somewhere nearby, Enzo gets some sleep but is awoken by the sound of vehicles. It's Il Merlo and his mates, and they've come to find him. Needing to escape and needing to get his hands bloodied by killing some of the men looking for him, he manages to make it to a final building but is confronted by Il Merlo.
I'm gonna make you wish you died in that rubble, huh?
What are you doing here, Damiano? Answer me.
Don't Torisi, this is Caruso.
I asked you a question.
The boy owes a debt. We tracked him. In the dark, he must have crossed over. We mean no disrespect. We'll take him. Be on our way.
The boy goes nowhere with you.
Until the debt is paid, he belongs to us.
On my land? nothing. You tell your boss, the boy is under my protection. And if our truce is dishonored again, I will repay that offense. Tenfold. Now leave.
We'd risk war with the Spadaros over a kid.
The greater risk would be allowing our enemies to overstep without consequence. Can you work?
Yes.
Then you bring him back, Luca.
Riding back with Luca, who has worked for the Don for 20 years, he explains that Don Teresi looks after all of this land, and he owns and runs Teresi Wine. He explains that the Don started out with nothing and has built everything that he owns himself. Showing him to his new digs, Enzo goes to sleep, but he's rudely awakened by Cesare, who is the Don's bone idle nephew. He says that he has some work to do, and by he means Enzo, and he has him carry crates of wine out onto a truck to be shipped to customers. After this, he meets Luca's wife, Valentina. He picks up a freshly butchered pig, which is some of the meat to be used at a dinner party later in the evening, to be held to commemorate Don Teresi's daughter's name day. After delivering the pig, Enzo gets to work in clearing out the stables. After some time doing that, he meets Isabella, the Don's daughter. The two clearly take a shine to one another. He then meets the priest, Father Ciccone. With his day's work now finished, Enzo takes a bath. Later that evening, the dinner party is in full swing and Enzo takes a seat. He is given some food and clearly has not been taught any table etiquette, and he wolfs down the food given to him. Luca sits down and Enzo thanks him for what they did for him. Luca points out a man called Tino. He advises the Don, a consigliere. Luca tells Enzo that he needs to look and to listen, and that by doing that he will learn all he needs to know. Then the Don's daughter Isabella makes an appearance. She and Enzo both notice one another, and they smile. The Don's wife is not around, presumably dead, and Isabella is all that he has left. Sometime later, Enzo is helping Luca load some wine onto a cart. It seems there's a big event going on in the town of San Celeste. It's a festival, and the main event is a horse race through the streets of town. It's a contest between all the towns in the valley, who each send riders to compete. Luca and Enzo accompany the cart to an associate of the family called Pasquale. He's a mechanic. On the way, Luca says that he's surprised that Enzo didn't go to America, and that he decided to stick around instead. He says that many there have gone to America to make their fortune. Delivering some stuff to him, Enzo receives some denari, a criminal underworld currency, and uses it to purchase a knife from Pasquale's mother's black market shop. He'll need it to protect himself. Back with Luca, he explains to Enzo that using a knife is in accordance with the old ways. He teaches him how to fight with a knife. After this lesson, Luca and Enzo head off to San Celeste, arriving not long before the horse race is due to take place. After looking around, Enzo enters the Teresi race tent, and there's an animated conversation taking place. The Don is furious, and this is because their rider is hammered and cannot ride, and it's due to Cesare taking him out for a drink. Enzo says that he can ride instead. The Don tells him that he will be representing the Teresi business, and will be riding for the Don's reputation. Luca tells him this is a great chance for him to twist the knife on the Spadaros for what they did to him and Gaetano at the mines. So Enzo competes, and after a tense race through the streets of San Celeste, he is crowned the victor. The Spadaros are present, of course, including Il Merlo, and they are not happy. The Don then addresses the crowd, telling them that they will now celebrate. Tino speaks with Enzo, and it's very clear that he does not trust the young man. Not even allowing him to at least revel in his success, Tino tells him to deliver some wine to some customers in the town. Thankfully, Enzo is not alone, as he has some company in Isabella. They deliver some of the wine, but they find themselves in danger as Il Merlo's thuggish brother Corrado shows up and confronts Enzo, with the two getting into a knife fight. Using the tips that he'd learned from Luca earlier on, Enzo manages to defeat Corrado, who also goes by the name La Ombra. Before he can finish him, Luca shows up and puts an end to the fight. He learns of what happened but tells Isabella not to tell the Don. Luca tells Enzo that he is brave, but reprimands him for being seen alone with Isabella is very stupid. He says that the Don is very protective of his daughter. It's an extremely warm day at the vineyard, and Enzo is in the shade having a drink and cooling down. He pulls a letter from his pocket, and it's from Isabella. She wrote to him thanking him for protecting her, and that she hoped she did not get him into trouble. A man approaches and tells him that Luca is looking for him. Finishing the rest of the letter, Isabella has asked him to meet her in the gardens. Before going to see Luca, he can choose to go to the gardens and meet Isabella. If doing so, Enzo says that maybe it's not a good idea for them to spend time together. The words of Luca still likely echoing in his head, his warning about being seen with the Don's daughter. Tino shows up and asks Enzo what he's doing there, to which he responds that he's looking for Luca. After Tino threatens Enzo, he leaves to find Luca. Entering the stables, he says they're going on a money collection run to collect from people that owe the Don protection money. He and Cesare invite Enzo along. With the horses, they ride out to different locations and collect. Some pay up, whereas some put up a fuss, requiring a little more convincing. They visit a quarry where the workers are threatening strike action because of pay, something that the Don does not stand for. Speaking to the foreman and having a fight with the ringleader convinces the workers to get back to it, and the Don is paid. They then journey over to Porto Almaro. It's run by the Galante family, Niccolo, who is the Don, and his grandson Leone. Meeting with them, they pay money to Luca and explain that the Garda have been cracking down on imports. There's a shipment in the customs warehouse that they need as they have a buyer for it. Leo, Cesare, and Enzo head to the warehouse. Leo explains that the shipment is whiskey from America. Naturally, Enzo is the one that needs to head into the warehouse and sneak around to find the shipment, whilst Cesare hangs back. Distracting the guards, Enzo finds his way to the shipment and grabs what they need. Leo has been distracting a guard and they reconvene at the bar. But back to the collection run. The final man they visit says that he's refusing to pay as bandits stole some equipment from him. He asks why he should pay for protection if he's not getting it. Luca agrees with him and tells Enzo and Cesare that they need to retrieve the equipment that was stolen. Riding up into the hills, they find the spot where the bandits are camping, and Luca departs, leaving Enzo and Cesare to take out the bandits and to retrieve the equipment. Killing all of them and their friends, they manage to find the stolen machinery, and after getting rid of the bodies, they return to the farm. The man begrudgingly pays them 100 lira for the extra work, and Luca, Cesare, and Enzo head back to the vineyard. It's now 1905. Enzo and Cesare are relaxing, and he asks why Enzo doesn't get himself a girl. A car approaches, and it's a pair of guests they've been expecting. It's the Baron Fontanella and his son Gennaro, who have come from Palermo. Enzo is unaware that Fontanella owns everything around there, including the mine, remember. Cesare tells Enzo that Don Teresi helps him out. Isabella is there, and Luca says that it's in the Don's interest for Isabella to spend some time with Gennaro, as he wants the two to marry. Not for love, of course, but for the power he will gain by merging the two families through the marriage. In short, the Baron owns this land, the Don is his tenant and runs it for him. Enzo and Cesare are to accompany them to the ruins nearby, as Gennaro wishes to see them. Gennaro is boasting of the car they've bought with them, but Isabella isn't really impressed, saying that she prefers to take the horse. Cesare tells Enzo to take a horse and to meet them by the back gate. Doing so, they follow the car to the ruins, but they take a detour on the way, having a race. Overlooking the ruins, Isabella hands him a camera, and he snaps a shot of the ruins. Meeting up with Gennaro and Cesare, Isabella and the Baron's boy head off to explore the ruins. It's clear that these two do not get on. Whilst they are gone, Cesare and Enzo watch the car, and by watch, they race it round a track that is used in order to host races. During their go-round though, they hear a gunshot along with a scream, and investigating, it seems that bandits are trying to kidnap Gennaro and Isabella. A chase takes place with Enzo and Cesare going after the bandits. Cesare explains during the chase that this gang are led by Paolo Messina. Paolo Messina is what's known as a brigand or a bandit. His gang have been reported to have stolen sheep from a local farmer in recent weeks. They also kidnap people and demand ransom payments. It seems from a ransom note found at a bandit camp that Messina's gang had been planning this for a while. Eventually, after managing to keep up, Enzo jumps from the car to a horse and then onto the cart. He and Isabella jump from the cart and they share a secret kiss. Cesare shows up and Enzo says that he's going to go after Messina in order to try and save Gennaro. Isabella protests and Cesare takes her back to the vineyard, telling Enzo he'll be back with Luca and the others. Arriving at Messina's camp, he shares with his men that Isabella is Don Teresi's daughter, and that they should expect that he will send men there to the camp at first light, and that they will need to be gone by then. Trying to make his way through the camp quietly, Enzo is spotted, and he fights his way up the hill where he finds and frees Gennaro. Attempting to leave, they are confronted by Paolo, who is not willing to let them leave, and he and Enzo fight. Enzo eventually kills Messina and heads back to the vineyard with Gennaro. Back at the vineyard, Luca and the men are preparing to leave to assault the camp, but of course they don't need to as Enzo arrives with Gennaro. The Don is impressed that Enzo risked his life to make amends and liked that he showed bravery and loyalty, and that is everything. Later on in the church, Isabella is there, and Enzo arrives. Enzo says that the Don wishes to see him, so he asks her if she's told anyone about their kiss. She says that she hasn't. The two agree that they have feelings for one another, with Enzo saying that he will find a way they can be together. Going to speak with the Don, Enzo is relieved to find out that the Don doesn't know about him and Isabella. He says the kidnapping was planned and orchestrated by Fontanella's business partner Ludovici. Gennaro was the only target, of course, but the idea was to get Fontanella to sell his holdings in the business. The Don says he isn't concerned with what happens in the mines, but when they got Isabella caught up in it, it became personal. This vendetta needs to be satisfied. After picking out a weapon, Enzo heads to Ludovici's villa, where Tino along with some other men are waiting. Ludovici is being guarded by Spadaro's men, so Enzo will need to sneak inside and grab Ludovici, as the Don wants him alive. Doing so, Enzo knocks Ludovici out, but attempting to leave, he is fired upon, and Ludovici bolts. Fighting through the Spadaros, Enzo catches up to Ludovici, knocks him out again, and loads him into a car. A bit later, they arrive at a secluded place, and Tino tells Enzo to kill Ludovici, and he does so. A week later, Enzo is reading another letter from Isabella, and he's interrupted by Cesare. He's being a bit shady and leads Enzo to Luca. Enzo is a bit worried and he enters a room. Inside are some men that are members of the Mafia. The Don tells Enzo that all the men in the room are bound by blood, by a code of honor. To betray one is to betray all. The Don asks if Enzo wishes to commit himself to the family, and he says that he does. He then undertakes a ritual and takes an oath, which makes him one of them. Outside, Luca tells Enzo he's proud of him, and Isabella looks on, clearly quite upset that Enzo is only getting deeper into the family. After many drinks, Enzo, Cesare, and Leo drive to San Celeste. There they stop off at the bordello. Enzo, instead of going with a woman, decides to get some sleep in the car. A little later, Leo and Cesare emerge, and Cesare takes him to a place, and it's revealed that this is to be Enzo's new place. From the bloodstains on the floor and a threatening letter on the table, it seems that this place belonged to someone who had to make a rather swift exit. Before getting a good sleep, Enzo places Gaetano's postcard of Empire Bay next to his bed. It's now 1906, and Enzo is driving with Cesare, who reveals that the Don has been in a foul mood ever since Spadaro bought Ludovici's share of the sulfur mine, meaning that Spadaro is now the Baron's business partner. This upsets the balance too, now that Spadaro has more money and power. Arriving at some rundown and abandoned tannery, they meet up with Leo Galante and the rest of the family. The Don says that since Spadaro bought part of the mine, he has also managed to get powerful people on his side. He's been leaning on the unions. However, Don Galante says that war must be avoided at all costs. They announce a new business venture between their two families. He says that every week ships arrive from America, and that every week they go back all the way to Empire Bay. Their new venture is printing money. American money. Sending the American money over to America, the market opens up to them there in Sicily. They have bought the finest counterfeiter in all of Italy to help them. However, he's been captured coming in from Napoli, after the crew of the ship he was on got into an altercation in the port. He's being held by the Guardia in San Celeste's town hall prison. He needs to be freed before the Guardia work out who he is. The Don tells Leo to take Enzo and Cesare to San Celeste, so they set off for the town. Getting to San Celeste in the square, Isabella and Valentina are there, but Enzo needs to get to work. He has to find and speak with a man wearing a red waistcoat, and finding him, he recites a special code phrase. Walking through the town hall, the informant shows Enzo where the cells are located, and that there are 2 guards inside it at any one time. With the information he needs, Enzo exits the town hall and speaks with Isabella. She says that they've hardly seen each other since he got his new place, and she tells him she misses him. She tells him that he should invite her over, but Enzo once again stresses the need to be careful. Heading across the road to meet up with Leo and Cesare, they plan how they are going to break the counterfeiter from his cell. Leo has a plan to draw many of the Guardia away from the town hall, and that's when Enzo is to go in and get the man out. A little later, at midnight, Leo's distraction has worked, and Enzo heads round breaking into the town hall. He manages to make it to the cells and frees the counterfeiter, who introduces himself as Giuseppe. But he needs the plates, essential for printing the money, which the Guardia confiscated when they arrested him. You also see that Corrado Bastoni is in there, as he assaulted a shopkeeper after he tried to steal a watch. Infiltrating the town hall itself and finding clues as to where the plates are, they are in the police chief's office safe, Enzo retrieves them. However, the alarm is sounded and Enzo needs to escape and has to shoot his way out of there, with Cesare lending a hand. Reaching the counterfeiter, they are able to escape, but Enzo is confronted by the police chief D'Amico. Before D'Amico is able to kill Enzo during their fight, Leo and Cesare show up and rescue him, before driving off into the night. They drop Enzo off at his place and take Giuseppe to the tannery. Making his way inside his place, Enzo hears something inside, and someone has broken in. To his surprise, it's Isabella, who took offense at not receiving an invite, so she broke in and is trying to make his place look a little nicer. The two of them kiss again, and Enzo says that she's taking a big risk, to which she responds that Enzo is not like the others. They then spend the night together. Meanwhile, business is booming. The money is being printed and is being loaded up into crates of wine and shipped to America. They're also benefiting from this partnership in terms of weaponry. American-made weapons along with luxury cigarettes. Leo leads them outside and shows them a poster for a race called the Targa Siragusa. Leo says that he can get them into the race. Asking what they're going to drive, Leo shows them that the Americans also sent a sports car. It's full of bullet holes, granted, but they take it to Pasquale so that he can give it a makeover. Leo has a plan for getting them into the race as competitors. Leo arranges to meet Enzo in San Celeste later in the evening, so going there, Enzo meets Leo, and the plan is to get a photo of Targa Siragusa cavorting with the working girls in order to bribe him into giving them a spot in the race. So, after getting the photograph, Enzo and Leo leave, with Leo being picked up by his close friend Franco. Later on, Leo reveals that they've been accepted into the race. Now they just need to get the car into good shape. Thankfully, Pasquale has worked his magic, and racing a train, they see that it's nearly ready to be raced, but it needs a tiny bit more work. Leo explains that Cesare will be navigating, as he's known those roads making up the track ever since he was little, a large advantage over the other racers. But now it's time for race day. Everyone is there: the Don, Isabella, Tino, Luca, Leo, Nicolo, and also the Spadaros, of course. The starter pistol goes off and the engine dies. But not to worry, they get it started, and they have some catching up to do. After some great driving by Enzo, he and Cesare manage to catch up and overtake every other car, winning the race. Celebrating their success at Porto Amaro, Enzo speaks with many people there who all congratulate him on a good race, apart from Tino, who still doesn't trust him, and he meets and speaks with Leo's close friend and confidant Franco as well. The guys want to take a photo to mark the occasion, so Cesare tells Enzo to seek out Isabella, as the proper photographer has passed out drunk. Finding her, Enzo says that the Don has given all the men the night off, and Isabella says that no one will be watching the house, and that anyone could sneak in. Wink wink. After snapping a photo of the winning team, it seems that Enzo and Isabella ended up at his place and spent the night together. But they're in for a rude awakening in the form of Tino, who is looking for Enzo and who quickly realises that he had a woman there. It's clear that both Enzo and Isabella are playing a very dangerous game. Tino, however, does not get what he's looking for. He tells Enzo that one of their informants, Aguada, has been informed that they are to raid the tannery today, so they have a traitor. He is to go there to warn the men and to clear the place out before the Guarda are able to get there. Driving to the tannery, Enzo manages to get there and warns the people that they need to leave now. Speaking with Cesare, they get to work, but the Guarda have arrived already and shots are being fired. Assessing the situation, it appears that the informant is none other than Corrado Bastoni, La Ombra. He ratted out another family's activities, which essentially means he's broken Omerta, the code of silence, and has cooperated with the authorities. It's probably what got him off of his assault charge. Another part of the deal was that La Ombra wanted the cash that had been printed. Helping workers escape, Enzo makes it to the tannery, but Giuseppe is not there. The men there don't know where he is, but outside Enzo hears that some workers have been rounded up and taken into various buildings on site. So, looking in them, he is able to find Giuseppe, who took out 2 Guarda all by himself. He tells Enzo that the cash is in a shipment inside the scraping house, so after helping Cesare, who is in a gunfight against the Guarda, he tracks down the cash. Only problem is that La Ombra is there, beating up Cesare, and he escapes with the cash. Chasing him down in another car, La Ombra crashes. Cesare runs after him and Enzo tracks him down. He warns Enzo that if he kills him, he starts a war. Enzo tells him that when people hear that he broke Omerta, he's a dead man. This does not scare La Ombra though, saying that they will trust his word over Enzo's. Cesare then cracks L'Ombre over the head with a shovel, killing him, with them not only on Spadaro turf, but also that they just killed one of their Capo regime. Enzo and Cesare place him in the car and set it alight so people will think that L'Ombre was drunk at the wheel. 3 days later, Don Torrisi has set up a meeting with Don Spadaro, with Don Galante present as a mediator. Don Torrisi tells Spadaro what went down at the tannery, and that L'Ombre was the one who was a rat. When telling him that Enzo and Cesare are the ones that reported this, Spadaro refuses to believe it, calling Enzo a half-wit. Il Merlo decides to stick his oar in and tensions rise, but Galante calms it down. Spadaro says that there's nothing for him to make right, so he leaves. 1907. Isabella writes to Enzo and says that they must take even greater care now, as the Don's mood has grown darker in the last few days. She tells Enzo that she loves him. The Baron arrives for a meeting with the Don, and he is there to ask for the Don's help with something. He speaks of a situation at his factory, striking workers, and as a result production has ground to a halt. Someone named Vincenzo Lorenzetti, who is one of the Don's oldest friends and has kept order there for years, is supposedly the one behind the strike. The Don doesn't believe it, so Fontanella pulls out a demand note which says that they are demanding compensation. After Fontanella has left, Luca and Enzo speak about what to do, and he says that the Don and Lorenzetti have known each other since they were young, so this is totally out of character. Enzo is to go to the area and speak with people in order to find out where Lorenzetti is. So, arriving there, he tracks down his mistress, who says that Lorenzetti was playing cards last night. But what's strange is what another man says. He says that Vincenzo hates the Union, and this man, his cousin, says that he barely talks to him these days because his cousin is part of the Union. Something isn't adding up here. He finds out that Lorenzetti was in quite a bit of gambling debt, and some men came looking for him during their card game, making everyone except Lorenzetti leave. But checking his office, he's not there. Enzo does, however, find evidence that implicates him in the planning of strikes. Even the person writing this letter is confused due to Lorenzetti's opposition to Union activity in the past. But then he finds a letter showing that he owed Don Spadaro money, but has not paid much of it back. Spadaro says that they discussed obligations at a previous meeting. Could this have been the strike action? Was he being forced to do so by Spadaro? Well, another letter confirms this. This letter was never sent, but was addressed to Don Torrisi, and was Lorenzetti apologising to his friend and basically saying that Spadaro has him by the balls on account of his large debt. It seems that someone got to him before he could send the letter. Enzo needs to get down to the factory as a man there tells him that armed men have been seen there, and that they dragged Lorenzetti off to Fontanella's office. Sneaking his way through the factory, Enzo finds Lorenzetti in there, but he's been badly beaten. He says that the one responsible was Il Merlo. Spadaro's men had chased the workers away in an attempt to lean on and put pressure on Fontanella. Lorenzetti passes away from his injuries, and Enzo is immediately thrust into danger as he is fired upon by Il Merlo and his men. Il Merlo says they are bleeding Fontanella dry and that he's finished. They try and smoke Enzo out of the office, so after fighting his way out of the factory and dealing with one of Il Merlo's heavies, he manages to escape. Back at the vineyard, Tino informs the Don that Lorenzetti is dead, that Spadaro's men stripped the place clean and torched it. They realise that Spadaro is trying to move on the whole valley. All this had been put in motion by Spadaro. Don Torrisi effectively says that if Spadaro wants a war, then that's what he will get. It's baptism day. Luca and Valentina's new child is getting baptized. The Don calls Enzo over and tells him that Isabella is taking her sweet time to get ready, so to escort her to the church in time for the baptism. Tino, well, he knows something is going on. Isabella finally emerges. It seems this was her plan all along in the hope that she would get Enzo as her private chauffeur. They then make their way to the church. On the way, they talk about how one day they too would like to be married with their own home and to start a family. Arriving at San Celeste, they check out the market stalls there. There are many people about as it's also a Saints' Day celebration. Enzo picks out a flower as a gift for Isabella. After, with Isabella liking her flower, which she puts in her hair, they enter the church and observe the baptism. They then pose for a photo in order to celebrate the occasion.
Get yourself a girl. Will be your son soon enough.
Signore? Step forward. Assassino!
Go! Go! Get inside! Spadaro bastards! On a holiday!
Luca, keep them safe.
Put the gun! I want it fucking in!
I'll cover you.
Moving up through the square, Enzo makes it to the church tower and ascends, where he fights Il Merlo. At some point though, Il Merlo runs, and a chase takes place through the various buildings and rooftops. After a few more fights, the chase takes to the roads, and Enzo chases Il Merlo down on a horse, and eventually Il Merlo crashes his car. The two fight once more, and just as Enzo has gotten the upper hand, Il Merlo stabs him in the leg. He strangles Enzo, nearly killing him, but he is shot in the head by Luca, and the two of them leave. At the port, Don Galante and Baron Fontanella are having a drink. They are waiting for Don Teresi to arrive, and when he does not seem too friendly with Fontanella, but they sit down to talk. Fontanella shows him a newspaper which details the violence between the Mafia. A mob war. All of Sicily is talking about it. He says that this war with Spadaro has gone too far. The Don takes objection to this, to which Fontanella replies that he should remember his position, as it is his family that has owned the land for generations. The Don reminds Fontanella that he is the one who has ensured the land has remained in his possession. Fontanella says there's talk of a prefect being sent from Rome in order to fight the Mafia, and that's a very bad thing. All Fontanella wants is an end to this war, but Don Teresi refuses to accept this as Spadaro attacked his family. Not only that, but he put Fontanella into ruin. Fontanella asks Teresi to come to the table and negotiate a truce, and Don Galante will mediate. Fontanella mentions their plans to join their families and for Gennaro to marry Isabella. He says that Spadaro is losing money, and he too does not want interference from the authorities in Rome, so he has an interest in ending this war as well. Don Teresi begrudgingly accepts the offer of negotiations. They offer him a drink, but he's quite clearly not interested in sharing a drink with either of them and walks off. Not long after this meeting, they are getting ready to set off for the negotiations. Enzo and Isabella meet, and he says the war with the Spadaros will be over soon, to which Isabella replies that Enzo told her a long time ago now that they can choose who they are. She questions whether or not this is Enzo's choice. Enzo says that he will ask Don Teresi soon about marrying Isabella. She replies that she cannot live in her father's world. She says there's something else she needs to tell him, but Enzo needs to leave, now, so this conversation will have to wait. Speaking with Luca, who has had a fresh argument with Valentina about this war with the Spadaros, he says that this is personal for them all. They drive out to a tuna factory with the Don and Cesare. Arriving there, they meet Leo, and head into the factory to meet with Spadaro. The handbags come out and insults are thrown, but Galante calms things down a bit. Spadaro then says that both he and Fontanella have a proposal. The Don immediately feels blindsided and betrayed. He says that Fontanella is selling up. Of course, this was Spadaro's plan all along, to bleed Fontanella dry and force him into selling his land. And this includes the vineyard. Fontanella says that he's been left with no choice, and Spadaro says that he'll offer market rate for all of Teresi's holdings. Teresi asks Fontanella what happens when the land is stripped bare by Spadaro, who is still grinning at Teresi's discomfort. Spadaro says that he and Fontanella need to confer, and they leave the room, and Teresi and Galante talk.
Did you know about this?
No, this is the first I've heard of it.
I think I can convince him. Let me give him one more chance.
No.
Get down! Move! Down!
With the war now having taken a shocking turn, Enzo and Don Teresi fight back against Spadaro's men. Luca is in increasingly bad shape. They eventually meet up with Leo, who needs help dealing with a sniper, and taking him out along with more men, Leo shows them a side exit that he can use to escape. After yet more firefights, they eventually make it to Cesare and drive to the bar in the port in the hope that they can save Luca by calling a doctor. They face more Spadaro on the way, and Enzo has to fend them off from the back of the truck while the Don tends to Luca. They get to the bar, and whilst waiting for the doctor, they have to fend off the last of Spadaro's men. But doing so, they head inside, and it's pretty clear there's nothing they can do to save Luca, and he passes away. Before he does, he tells Enzo to get out and to forget. Later that evening, Enzo is back at his place, and he hears someone outside. It's one of Teresi's men, and he says the Don wants to see him. Getting dressed, he travels with Cesare to the vineyard via horse. It's safer being able to take the back roads, and they arrive. The Don is sitting next to Luca's body, but he asks Cesare to leave, which hurts him. The Don asks Enzo to do something very important for him. He needs to go to Palermo, to the opera house, and to kill both Spadaro and Fontanella in response to the massacre at the tuna factory. They'll be settling their deal there. The Don has a friend in Palermo who can get Enzo where he needs to go, and this is by a horse-drawn carriage, which will take him to a place near to the opera house. The Don says the family will owe him a great debt for this, and he sees this as the perfect way to gain the Don's approval to marry Isabella. As he's leaving, Isabella grabs Enzo.
What is he asking you to do?
Answer my question.
Answer mine.
I need to take care of something. I won't be gone for long.
I'm sure that's what Luca told Valentina. Let me guess. He wants you to go alone.
I can handle myself, Isabella. I have to do this. For Luca.
There is nothing you can do for Luca. Luca is gone. He died for my father, for his honor. I won't let you do the same. And so... I'm pregnant. I need you here, with me.
I have no choice. Your father is...
This would have been an easy decision for the man I thought you were.
Outside, Cesare asks Enzo what the Don wants him to do, but he cannot say. He then climbs aboard the carriage and is taken to Palermo. This place is bustling with people, and of course, Guarda. Fontanella speaks with Spadaro, and it seems the old man is having second thoughts about their deal. Meanwhile, Enzo is dropped off and meets with a priest. He hands the priest a gift from the Don, and the priest leads him to the ancient waterways that run underneath the city. This way they can avoid the eyes of the Guarda. These are tunnels that have been used by smugglers in years gone by. He makes it into the opera house eventually, and then climbs up and over the rigging above the stage. Heading to the private booth where Fontanella is, Enzo approaches him. He puts a knife to the Baron's throat and tells him that his greed saw a good man, Luca, die. He then cuts the Baron's throat. But Spadaro walks in, sees Enzo and leaves. The Baron then falls over the edge, and this puts the opera house, including all of the Garda, on alert. Enzo has to shoot his way out of there, killing many of Spadaro's men, and goes after Spadaro, who has retreated into the tunnels. Catching up to him, Enzo and Spadaro fight, and Enzo is able to best him and jams the knife into his throat, killing him. Luca, along with Don Galante, have been avenged. Taking Spadaro's ring as proof of the kill, Enzo leaves the tunnels and gets back into the truck. But some curious Guarda get dangerously close to discovering Enzo in the back of the truck, until one of his men calls them away. Back at the vineyard, Enzo goes to the Don's office and places Spadaro's ring on his desk, and the Don grins gleefully, knowing that the land he considers his own is now safe. He calls Enzo his most dutiful soldier and tells him that he's proud of what he's become. Don Teresi tells Enzo they buried Luca, and his grave is at the chapel on top of the hill if he wants to go and pay a visit. On the way to the chapel, Enzo speaks with and offers his condolences to Valentina and to young Samuele, Luca's son. At Luca's grave, Isabella shows up and overhears Enzo saying that he was willing to die for the family, but that now he has to live for his own. Enzo apologizes to Isabella, and he says that he will never leave her again, and that he will not die for another man's pride. Enzo says that they will leave for America together. It's been a few weeks, and it seems that Enzo has been AWOL for a bit, as people haven't seen him. He says he's been busy. He's been summoned to see the Don, and he's beating 7 bells out of some poor guy. The Don mentions the family owing Enzo a debt of gratitude. He reveals that he now owns the sulfur mine. Enzo knows how the mine works, so he's now in charge of it. Enzo realizes that he's now the person he hated, Il Merlo. What's more is that the Don has already informed all of the workers at the mine that their working day will now be extended to end at 7 PM to correct the inefficiencies of Spadaro's management. It turns out the Don is even more of a tyrant than Spadaro was. The Don does say that it'll make Enzo rich, and he then leaves, saying that there's a few loose ends to tie up, and speaking with Tino, he drives them over to a farm. On the way, Tino says that there are 3 targets. 3 of Spadaro's captains that have gone to ground. Seems that Gennaro put Don Teresi in charge of the mine the day after his father, the Baron's funeral. Of course, due to Enzo having been out of action for a few weeks, all of this information is new to him, and part of the Don's deal with Gennaro is that he and Isabella are to marry, all for the benefit of more power for Don Teresi. Arriving at the farm, Tino speaks with the man who dug the grave, Guido, and shoots him dead. Tino says that Guido had been working with the Spadaros. It seems that Don has ordered anyone not loyal to him to be purged. Sending Enzo to speak with Cesare, the two meet back at the vineyard. It seems that Cesare is growing a little bit jealous of Enzo and the love he's getting from the boss. Nonetheless, he allocates both of them targets to go after. Going to speak with Valentina before he leaves, he finds her in the kitchen with Isabella. She leaves in order to give them some time to talk, and Enzo tells her they will be leaving together very soon, but this is just one last thing he has to do. She says to be careful as she thinks that Tino knows something. Speaking with Valentina, Enzo hands her a big wedge of cash and tells her that it's for her and Luca's boys. She tells him to take Isabella for a better life than this. Enzo then leaves. He first needs to meet up with one of the family near to the forest, as he has a bead on Enzo's target's location. So, meeting up with Valerio, Enzo gets the location, sneaks round the place, and eventually manages to kill his target, Mazzone. Going to find Cesare, he arrives to find that Cesare is having some trouble taking out his target, so Enzo assists him, with them managing to take him out after a long chase throughout the countryside and another shootout. They now need to go after the final target, and they need to meet Tino at the church. At the church, it seems that their target has taken sanctuary inside it. Fighting their way up the hill to the church, the priest Ciccone comes out and decries them carrying out such acts of violence at a house of God. The man, Costa, comes out and says that he's unarmed. He talks about how he has a family, a wife and 2 sons. Enzo is ordered by Tino to kill Costa, but he can choose not to, in which case Cesare kills him instead, and with the job done, Tino wants to have a little chat with the priest and leads him inside the church, clearly eager to know all about what people have been telling him during confession. A little bit later, Enzo and Cesare travel to Porto Almaro and they drink, with Cesare disappearing upstairs with a couple of women. Enzo speaks with Leo, who tells him that if he goes, to stay gone. He hands him an envelope containing 2 tickets for Enzo and Isabella to go to America. Leo makes it clear that his business there is done. His grandfather is dead and his family has nothing there now. He'll be going to America with Franco at some point. Leo gives Enzo an address, which is for Franco's cousin, and Leo tells him to write as that's where they'll be staying. Enzo leaves and Leo and Franco both drink to remember Don Galante. Leo says, "Justice." I guess this is him helping tear apart Don Teresi's family, as revenge for Teresi and Spadaro's war killing his grandfather. It did turn out, however, that Leo Galante signed over the Galante business ventures to Don Teresi, pretty much making the Don the most powerful man in the entire valley now. Leo likely doesn't care though, he just wants out. Not long after this, Enzo is heading to Valentina's house to meet up with Isabella. A train is going to take them to Palermo, and then a ship will take them to Empire Bay. In the next couple of days, they'll be in America. Before they leave, Valentina gives them a gift for their unborn baby, and they drive to the train station. On the way, Isabella talks about how the mountain is producing more smoke than usual, and she thinks that something may happen. They arrive at the station, and Enzo gives Isabella a letter as he's written down everything he wants to say to her. He also carved a wooden toy for their child, as he had one like this when he was a boy. Going to board the train, they are surprised at the station by Tino and some other Teresi guys, including Cesare. Tino reveals that the priest told him about Isabella's pregnancy, and he tells her that Don Teresi has made arrangements for her to see a doctor and for the pregnancy to be aborted. Enzo, meanwhile, is knocked out, his hands are bound, and he's placed into a truck to be transported somewhere. He speaks with Cesare, but he asks Enzo what he was thinking. Enzo says that the mob life destroys everything good, and that he had to make a choice. He says that the Don has only turned him into a thief and a murderer. A short while down the road, they arrive at the sulfur mine. Enzo is back, right where all of this started. Entering what was to be Enzo's office there at the mine, the Don is there, and he asks Cesare to cut Enzo loose. The Don proceeds to beat Enzo, outraged at his so-called betrayal. It's clear that the Don only ever saw Enzo as a Caruso, no matter what he did for the family. He says that Isabella will marry who he tells her to marry, all to feed his own ambition, greed and lust for power. The Don tries to force Cesare to kill Enzo, but a tremor rocks the place and the volcano atop the mountain erupts. Enzo launches himself at his friend. They fall out of the window, ending up in a knife fight. Enzo bests Cesare, but refuses to kill him as he is his friend. Enzo leaves and tries to find his way out of the mine, fighting many of Teresi's guys whilst doing so. Attempting to cross a bridge, a fireball from the volcano destroys it and Enzo is forced down into the mines, but thankfully Enzo knows these mines and he knows a way out. However, he is confronted by the Don, who tries to shoot him. A little further on, the Don catches Enzo and beats him. Before he can kill him, Enzo spots the gas near to the Don, throws a lantern and causes a cave-in, presumably killing the Don. Venturing outside, Enzo only gets so far when he is confronted by the Don. Of course he's not dead. It would not be that easy. The two fight and Enzo manages to best Don Teresi, stabbing him in the abdomen, and he bleeds out whilst telling Enzo that he can't change what he is. After the Don is dead, Cesare shows up and offers Enzo a hand. Cesare apologizes and hugs Enzo, who rather naively accepts, and then comes the inevitable knife in the back. Enzo is killed. Back at the villa, Isabella has been locked in a room. Tino enters and tells Isabella to make herself presentable. He says a car is on the way to take her to a doctor. She tries to get Tino to see reason, even begging him, but he's steadfast in his loyalty to the Don, telling her that she has dishonored her father and shamed the family. Holding the wooden animal Enzo carved for their child, this gives her the impetus to try and escape this hell she's trapped in. Using the hairpin on the floor, she is able to use it to unlock the balcony doors and hides in her father's office. Sneaking round her father's men and Tino, who have quickly realised she's no longer in her room, she heads into the kitchen and a maid helps her by creating a distraction whilst Isabella sneaks into the cellar. The cellar quickly gets set on fire by the fireballs from the volcano erupting, and after having to deal with one of the men in the cellar, killing him, she finds a way out. Still having to sneak through the estate, she finds another maid that helps her, who tells her to get out through the garden. Doing so though, she is caught by Tino, but she bites him and uses the knife she acquired, slashing his face. She now has to sneak around in order to attack Tino, eventually managing to kill him. Good riddance. With her about to leave on her horse, a very emotional and clearly conflicted Cesare shows up. Isabella asks where Enzo is, and she instantly realises that he's dead once he hands her the ticket for the boat to America. As Isabella leaves, Cesare walks towards the villa, all that he was set to inherit having now gone up in flames. The Teresi family is finished, meaning that Cesare is nothing. Isabella makes it to Palermo and onto the ship to Empire Bay, where she reads the letter Enzo gave to her.
Amore mio, we'll remember today for the rest of our lives. It's the day we chose a future for our family. My father left me for dead. Our child will live how they choose. Just knowing that makes everything we've been through worthwhile. I can't undo my past, but you helped me to rise above it. And for that you have my love, my loyalty, forever. Enzo.
As the ship arrives into Empire Bay, Isabella smiles, knowing that her and Enzo's child will have a better life. So, disclaimer, there will be spoilers now for Mafia 1, 2 and 3 in this chapter. In the aftermath of all of this chaos, a fair few characters from the old country ended up in America. Firstly, when Enzo is breaking out the counterfeiter from the San Celeste town hall, you can find a rap sheet for Ennio Salieri. Salieri, of course, originally from Palermo, is the Don of the Salieri crime family in Mafia 1. Then we have Luca's young son Samuele. It seems the mob life and the fact that this life killed his dad did nothing to deter young Sam, and he would find his way to America. No doubt Valentina moved there for a better life for her and the children, and joined Salieri's mob, becoming a trusted member of Salieri's family. Then we have Leo Galante. After the Teresi Spadaro war took everything from him, including his last remaining family member, since his whole family was killed in another mob hit when he was very young, Leo went to America after signing over the business interests to Don Teresi. He would not start up a new crime family though. Instead, his close friend Franco, or Frank Vinci, his full name, would set up his own crime family, the Vinci crime family, and Leo would become Frank's consigliere. The Vincis then ruled Empire Bay along with the Moretti family. But they went to war for 2 years in the 1930s during the Prohibition over what was left of the money-making opportunities. This all came to a head when the capo from the Moretti family, called Carlo Falcone, conspired with Leo Galante to assassinate Don Moretti, and it worked. Anyway, long story short, Leo became a senior figure in something known as the Commission, which was set up in order to oversee and settle disputes between families. After Vito and Joe had annoyed the triads in Empire Bay, they wanted them dealt with, and Leo Galante was the one that arranged for Vito Scaletta to be spared and had him exiled from Empire Bay and sent to New Bordeaux, where he would sit underneath Sal Marcano and the Marcano crime family. After Lincoln Clay's revenge-fueled spree throughout New Bordeaux after he killed Salmar Carno, that's a very long story, Leo Galante visited New Bordeaux and informed Lincoln that he made his point and that as long as Lincoln is done, the commission consider the matter settled and will not be coming after him. There's Giuseppe, the counterfeiter, and he ended up in Empire Bay too. He carried on working his counterfeiting business, and Vito and Joe visited him when Vito returned home from the war and needed counterfeit release papers. Who else? Oh yes, remember Costa, the guy that was begging for his life outside the church and said that he had 2 sons? Well, there's a theory that one of his sons could be Pepe Costa, Leo Galante's huge hulking bodyguard that Vito first met when he was in prison. Maybe. But that's pretty much it. Nice to see these characters get their own backstories. As for Sicily itself, well, Benito Mussolini in 1925 would wage war against the Mafia, and at some point a lot of the Mafia in Sicily were arrested or left for greener pastures, i.e. America. And that is it for this video on Mafia the Old Country. If you want to know more about the rest of the Mafia franchise, then I do have an entire story video on the Mafia franchise's storyline, so go and check that out if you want to find out what happened in the other games. For now though, leave a comment below with your thoughts, subscribe if you aren't already, and leave a like to show your support. But take care, and I'll see you in the next one.